I was going to show you my new setup for my room. And there are a lot of people that will freak out when they see my room because it's very dirty and it's a man cave. You know, man caves those tend to look when they're being lived in. So as you can see, lots of junk all over. But look where the chair is. What chair is? And that's the sofa chair. That's the one I recline in. And I usually go to sleep in that thing. And so I play my video games now this way, and I just do pretty much everything from that chair, I guess now. And I have to be careful not to hit this table back here because there's some junk all over it that somebody, like especially that LCD monitor, fall over, then it'd be a problem. You'll find bottles on the floors in my room, and those are just plastic bottles that I've already drunk the stuff out of, and I don't feel like picking them up. But when I do, I pick them up and I just put them in recycling. Uh, this chair is going to get practically destroyed if I keep using it because I'm fairly heavy, and some of these chairs are not designed to carry people my size. And so I got one coming in to support me, and it's going to be a 400-pound chair. 400-pound maximum. And I'm not even 400. I'm like about 310. But that's enough to destroy one of these chairs. And on the TV, we got my website, and this is one of my channels. It's called An Upside Down Hierarchy is the way heaven is, or something. This guy's talking about this guy named Eduardo Souza, who had fixed what's called gravage, or he fixed fragua without gravage, and people who are in the culinary arts understand that to fix fragua you need to do gravage, and that is you need to force feed geese all the stuff in order to make their livers fat. But according to this guy, he found a guy in Spain who does this stuff. His name is Eduardo Souza. It's not this guy, but the guy that he was interviewing. And he does natural fragua, which nobody's ever heard of. Natural fragua, and what it was that the geese just naturally overstuff themselves on food because they're preparing for winter. And what Eduardo Souza does is he prepares a kind of a palette of like all the various flavors that is pretty much all the things the geese want to feed on, and they just end up feeding on them. And this guy's got this story that's just completely outlandish. He said at one point the geese will actually call up to geese that are flying over, going south for the winter or whatever, and will call them down and have them stay inside of the farm. And he says, so they're staying there temporarily. He says, no, they're staying there they're staying permanently. And he says, well, it's my understanding that birds fly south in the winter. And it says no, that's wrong. Birds fly to where living is suitable. Where they're looking for places that are suitable for living, and that's this guy's farm. And so this guy's farm just increases the load with geese that feed on the stuff that's on his farm. And the guy said he makes more money off of the figs and things like that than he makes off of this fragua. And in the fragua won the Cudicot, which is France's which is considered to be like the Olympic Games gold medal of what the culinary arts have, and he won it for his fragua. And it was such a big turnoff to the French that they swore that he was lying, that it was completely made up, that they even implicated the French government in it, that it was some sort of some yeah. And so it was like but he said it's completely the story of how Francois came about was that the some Jewish people, I guess the Jews that were interacting with Pharaoh, Pharaoh wanted. They fed him Francois, and he loved it so much he forced them to have it year round, and they couldn't imagine that because it was something that was seasonal. So they just turned to force feeding the geese, and so for the longest time they've been doing Francois that way. And according to Eduardo, that this is something that should naturally occur seasonally, not something that should be year round. And so I guess that's the idea. Maybe it is year round, but originally it was not ever meant to be something that was fixed year round. And he says that the way that Eduardo, the stuff that Eduardo's got is say so much better. And he asks him, so like, is there some mustard in here? And here's some pepper. So you're feeding them. You're putting pepper in it. He says no, it's all just goose liver. That's all it is. It says how do you get in there? And then he pointed out that there's all like these plants on the farm, like mustard plants and pepper plants and stuff like that. And basically, the goose just feed on the stuff that they want, and that ends up in the flavor of the goose liver. And so, part of what this guy is pushing is the idea that whenever you want quality products, you don't force people into working harder or whatever for that to create that stuff. You give them the necessary environment in which they are going to produce quality products. An example of that is Xerox PARC. The guys at Xerox PARC were these really fantastic scientists and educators and stuff, and they put together a operating system called Smalltalk, and created an entire environment which practically is like all the instruments of what became the Macintosh. And Xerox had put money into this research group, and basically just gave them enough money to do whatever the heck they wanted to do. Just said all they said is just like create the future, and we'll try to create it into a product, something we can sell. And they made something. It cost way too much, and then Xerox got the wise idea to get these guys who had just made this Apple computer to come in and see if they could get the product marketed. If they could come up with a way of making it cheaper that does about the same thing. And what happened is about a year after that, after they invited Steve Jobs over to look at what they had, the next year, practically all the guys that were working at Xerox PARC ended up working at Apple. Because the guys at Xerox were not really, they were so clueless about what these researchers were doing, that they just couldn't figure out what they put all this money into it, but couldn't really comprehend what they had produced there. And Steve Jobs said, if they had been, he said they were just copier heads, and if they had even realized what it was that they had, they could have been the next Microsoft. They could have been the IBM or something. And at that time, Microsoft wasn't all that big, but Microsoft got to be really big, and so Xerox could have been pretty much the people in the computer industry, if they had even realized what the quality of the product that they had. But the one thing they did right that isn't usually done in the tech world, is they giving your software developers and your computer science type guys enough money to live happily and to not be pressured all the time, because there's this idea called the Moore's Law, and that's the idea is that technology increases in speed and capacity and quality every year by twice. And the thing is that that's more a curse than it is a reality. The Moore's Law only applies to the lithography techniques that are used in order to make processors faster, and that is you basically just take the schematic and you double the the diagram and you relithograph it to the chip, and that produces a faster processor. But it's more just an imaging process than it is actually creating new technology. And so for the longest time, they've been applying Moore's law to everything in technology, and where they should have only been applying it to microchips and memory, which is where it really is exhibited. It's not exhibited anywhere else in technology. And so it's really the managers getting this wise idea of how to treat people, and that is, if it isn't doubling every year, then there's something wrong with people, and then they pressure them, and they cut back their pay, and they do all sorts of manipulation. Keep in mind that 4% of your managers are psychopaths. This is well known to be the case, and that's because psychopaths, as they grow up, develop a capacity to manipulate people because they need to keep people from realizing that they're psychopaths. And so much of their life is trying to manipulate people around them from ever knowing that they're a psychopath, and then they use their abilities to actually create. They figure out ways to manage people in such a way that they can keep working all the time, but they're not attuned to the emotions and to the need for people to relax and to have time off and things like that. And so that is what we've done in the world. The reason why when COVID hit, people were so upset, and they were, and the reason why you have road rage is because people are overstressed in their jobs, that if they can't get to their job in enough time, they're going to lose their job. That kind of experience produces road rage. It's what's producing people going in and destroying shops and killing people, is because of the overstressing of, just basically pushing everybody to the limit. And that is not the way that you do. In the Bible, there was a thing called the sabbatical, which was a day of rest. The Sunday today is the day of rest that you can go to church or you can just sit at home, but you basically have a day off. And then there was the Shemitah, Shmeta, Shemitah, and it was the 7th year, where you were not supposed to work all year long or be stoned to death. And the stoned to death thing is just to give emphasis to it, that if somebody got up and started working, everybody else would feel bad because they're not also working, and they get up and start working. So the idea was to say, you need this, and if you ever go against this, then people should kill you because you need this. And the way that it was put across is that God, which was the one who was telling the people that this should be the way, this was a part of their religion, was that you should have a whole year off, and in that year you let the land go fallow. That means that it gains all the nutrients in order to produce better quality food the following year. So you take the land that you've worked and you let it go fallow. You basically don't work it for a year, and then God was going to give them like a 3-year crop, a quality crop, so that they would have enough grain to get them through 3 years if they were off every 3 years. So they would have enough food to eat for that whole year. They basically just sit around and live life, just enjoy life for a year, and then after that year, then they would be refreshed enough to work another 6 years, and then that 7th year that would happen again. They would have a 7th year off, and the other thing that happened was that all the slaves, which were people that were indebted to other people. If you were indebted, you were never indebted longer than 6 years. So people who had loans, for instance, their loans would be be cut off by the time of the seventh year, the Shemitah, and so they basically go free. So the slaves go free, and I guess they don't come back. And so the idea with all of this is to give people comfort, just like I've got here my comfort chair in front of my TV set. Of course, I don't really work all that much, but it isn't like I don't do anything, and I'm giving you this story, and I've had time enough to take in that content. One of another thing I point out to people is that stress can kill you alone. My father and I had a mission, a mission. It was really a jail ministry. That's what it was, and we had a guy there who was really intensely terrified that he was going to go to hell. And he had killed somebody, but he didn't feel any remorse for the person he killed, and he thought for that reason he was going to go to hell. And we tried to convince him otherwise, but he wouldn't take it from us. And that night he died in his sleep from a heart attack, caused by this spiral of doubt that he had produced in his mind. And this is the effect of stress. If you push stress to the limit, it will kill you. It will cause a heart attack. Happens in people who are hypochondriacs. It's my belief that when a hypochondriac, or when anybody goes to a doctor's office, the doctors the doctor will give you forms to fill out, and I think part of that is to deal with hypochondriacs that come to the office, that they'll be filling out the forms, and the nurse will come out and take their blood pressure and whatnot, and then after the forms they'll take their blood pressure again, and if it has changed then they'll send them home with a placebo because they were overstressed. And the stress was what was making them sick. The idea that they might be sick was what was making them sick, not that they were actually sick from anything in the first place. It was that the stress, and clinical stress, is high blood pressure and high heart rate. Those things, if you have them for long periods of time, can do really terrible things to your body. And four things that it does is it hampers your immune system, it slows your tissue regrowth, it stops reproduction so you can't have babies, and it suppresses cognition so you don't think well enough. And so this is what you're essentially doing to the people in your business whenever you're overstressing them and you're holding their employment over their heads whenever they're not able to produce stuff in a quality amount of time, is you're basically making it even worse. And in the software industry is well known, they teach you this in school, that you don't the common saying is that in order to get a baby out, you don't throw more pregnant women at the problem. That's exactly what software development's like. You never have a team more than 3 to 7 software developers. If you have more than 7, the problem that's experienced is that you'll have people coming in to the software product and you'll have people going out. And so you spend most of your time with the administrative part of it, and that is teaching people what it is that you've got so that they can come in and start working it. And then people that are leaving, those are people that you've lost, that you spend more time training people than you do actually doing real development work. And so what you need to have 3 to 7 software developers committed and well paid to work on that project for a long period of time, rather than trying to get 50 people to work on it and get it done in 2 years. And that is the reason why tech people have a tendency to leave their jobs and retire early, is because they're sick of that experience that they get from managers who don't understand that Moore's law only applies to CPUs and memory chips. And this experience is also felt throughout other industries, because they're also influenced by what they see happening in the software in the computer world. that things double in speed and quality and all that every year, they're probably also getting the same sort of experience from their managers that they also need to increase and get faster and faster and better and all that stuff. And I think that all the stuff that we're experiencing now is basically God saying, you can't live this way any longer. And, you need to see just what the effect of sin is. And this is sin. The way you're forcing people to live is sin, is a sin. And we're probably going to experience some calamities. And it is really just to put across to the people that treat people this way that they're going to get treated, that pretty much in general, we're all going to get treated to some degree in a way that we need to be treated, and that is be forced to be home quarantined, and also to understand that our lives don't completely depend upon our employers, that our life depends upon worshiping God, and realizing that everything we've got here comes from God, not from yeah, and that's the idea. So